The reality of loss is that you will grieve forever. You will not get over the loss of a loved one. You will learn to live with it. You will heal and you will rebuild yourself around the loss you have suffered. You will be whole again, but you will never be the same. Nor should you be the same, nor should you want to. Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. Please be seated. Good morning. Good morning. I have had the beautiful opportunity this weekend of walking with your community in grief. Some of you may have been at the adult session yesterday or the kids and youth session, or joined us for chili dinner after. Some of you may have seen the Youth Mosaic project that is being completed as an illustration of how we can rebuild ourselves into something new after loss breaks us apart. I hope all of you will join us tonight at prayer stations right here to come together as a community in our grief, to honor losses, and reach ourselves, each other, and the world with the warm light of compassionate prayer. How apt that this morning's text offers us a chance to look at grief through the lens of a suffering Jesus who is asking us to walk with him. He said, "If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me." This is a text about suffering. This is Jesus asking us to set aside our belief that we can fix everything, and instead to face our suffering and trust that he will be with us in it. When our suffering is from grief, we know that the only way out of it is through it. Jesus is encouraging us to carry grief as our cross in order to heal. In researching and looking around at how others interpret this text, I found a lot of "we must suffer as Christ suffered in order to truly know him." This bit of suffering theology can be quite problematic when interpreted in ways that deny our feelings of sorrow and anger. If we interpret this to mean that we are supposed to suffer for glory, or that suffering is our ticket to heaven, we end up with modern-day statements, often well-intentioned, such as "everything happens for a reason," or "God won't give you anything you can't handle." Huh? Who wants to scream when they hear those phrases? I just cannot believe in a godly plan that kills and maims some so that others may evolve. The loving God who became flesh so that we may intimately know him cannot tragically kill a husband just so that his wife can learn to appreciate life. The loving God who gave us the Holy Spirit to be a light on our path cannot allow for a toddler to drown in the sea while her family is fleeing an oppressive regime just so that the world can wake up to injustice. Our God cannot give children cancer as a development tool for the rest of us. So what might Jesus mean when he tells us to take up our cross? I believe it is a call to lean into our suffering rather than to avoid it. When we push our grief and our anger away, we miss out on opportunities for healing, growth, and transformation. The tragedy is not given by God, but our emotional response of grief is a gift from God. We grieve because we love. Is love not a gift? You might think this sounds a little bit like everything happens for a reason, but there is a small and significant distinction. Everything does not happen for a reason, and there is opportunity in everything that happens. We can make meaning from suffering and still wish that we didn't suffer. We can find purpose after a tragedy and still believe that if we were given superpowers, we would travel back in time and change the outcome. Jesus accepted the suffering. He scolded Peter when he tried to save him from it, because Jesus wanted to teach that though we cannot always be saved from our suffering, we can be with one another in it. Who here knows anyone who has not suffered? It is because of our shared experience of suffering that we can be radically compassionate toward one another. It is because we don't flee from suffering that we can show up for each other when it arrives unbidden and unwelcome. We have a choice when things don't go as planned to decide to turn away from God or turn toward God. We can invite our grief in as a teacher for us, or we can do everything in our power to avoid it. Here is what we know about grief. Whether we want it or not, it does not go away. Over time, grief changes shape, and our emotions can feel less intense, but we are forever changed by loss, and we are forever accompanied by grief. It is when we allow grief to integrate into our lives that we begin to heal. In this way, we take up our cross, and Jesus is there with us to help us bear the weight. When we accept that what happened, happened, we can ask God to show us the way. We can pray, God, I am hurting. Please help me heal. Please help me feel your presence in the midst of this deep sorrow. God knows you're in pain. God knows when you feel buried in the dark. God also knows that transformation comes after dark places. The caterpillar is in a dark chrysalis when its body essentially dissolves into goo before it emerges as a butterfly, bringing color and beauty to the world. A tiny seed is buried in the dark earth where it germinates until it sprouts into the light and can become a tree for children to climb. St. John of the Cross spent 14 years in a time that he called the dark night of the soul, before he experienced a transformation that gave his life deeper meaning and joy. I feel it is here that I must reiterate, this does not mean everything happens for a reason. Bad things happen, period. Full stop. We know that. What we do with that is where hope lies. Bad things happen, and we can ask God to show us how can we make meaning from this. Crosses of tragedy or challenge get thrown at our feet all of the time. We can run from them or pick them up and carry them, knowing that this is how we heal and this is how we make the choice to let our grief transform us. Do you all remember the shooting that happened in Tucson, where I'm from, in 2011? At an event outside the Safeway grocery store, our Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords was shot along with 18 other people. 6 people died, including the youngest of victims, 9-year-old Christina Taylor Green. Christina Taylor, a little girl who was born on 9/11 of all days, was a straight-A student who sang in a church choir. She had a budding interest in government and had just been elected class president at her elementary school. Her focus was to help her less fortunate classmates. A family friend had brought Christina Taylor to see Representative Giffords that day to nurture her growing interest in politics. Her mother remembers how excited she was to go. Christina Taylor's death was tragic, and our community grieved. Bad things happen, period. So what did people do with it? Devastated by Christina Taylor's death and moved by the people who tried to save her life, her best friends, Jamie Stone and Serenity Hamrick, both resolved to live with a specific purpose from that point on. As of 2021, Jamie was already enrolled at the university to be an EMT, with plans of becoming a paramedic and then part of a flight rescue team with the National Guard, so that she could help people experiencing bodily traumas. Jamie said, I try to live my best life for her. I think about her all the time. Serenity wanted to become a nurse so that she could help people in their time of need and continue to heal herself from the loss. She said, when I lost Christina Taylor, it was very hard for me, and it is still hard for me today. I worked to push myself to be the person she would want me to be, and to experience all of the things that she can't because she's gone. I wonder if Jamie and Serenity saw their response to their friend's death as taking up their cross. They were given a circumstance in life I'm sure we all agree that no one should have to experience, and yet they didn't run. This heavy cross of grief lay on the ground before them. They could have avoided it, and we wouldn't have blamed them. So many young people who experience traumas become statistics of depressed or cripplingly anxious adults. Some resort to drugs or alcohol to numb the pain, and some decide that their trauma story will be their only story. We can't judge them. Grief is excruciating. But these best friends didn't run. As children, they saw the grief and loss before them, and they picked it up, carrying its heavy weight as they moved forward. Christina Taylor did not have to die for her friends to find purpose, but she did die, and so her friends chose to look for purpose in their loss. Jesus asks us to take up our grief cross because the only way out is through. Take up your cross and follow me is a statement of love and care. Jesus is saying, take up your heavy burdens and journey with me, and I will help you. Jesus is showing us the way. Everything does not happen for a reason. When bad things happen, you can choose to open space for these difficult realities to transform you. You have to accept that you cannot do it yourself. You pick up your grief and walk with Jesus. Even in our walk with Jesus, grief lives with us for the rest of our days. We will always miss those we love who have died. We will experience sadness and anger and fear, but our emotions evolve too. They begin to not overwhelm us. They begin to not sneak up on us as often. We find the breaks between them lengthen. Our grief shapes us as we rebuild and relearn our lives after what we thought we knew and who we were shattered. Those shattered pieces of us don't go away, but they get rearranged into something new, like the butterfly and the tree, like Jamie and Serenity. Pick up your grief and walk with Jesus. He will show you the way. Amen.